Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Third Eye Edify podcast. I'm your host, George Mesa, as always, and with me today, I'm very excited to introduce you to not only a good friend of mine, but somebody who's been all over the world. He's a friend of everyone he meets, and he's traveled the world with his inspiring music and so much more, and I can't wait to let him tell you all about it. This is Dan Bailey of the Dan Bailey Tribe.
Hello.
And Dan, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on. We thankfully had the chance to play a few shows recently this past summer, but it's been a while since then. So we got so much catching up to do, and so much has happened to you since we were doing our really heavy, gigging schedule over the summers out here in Long Island. And man, I can't tell you how exciting it is to know all the interesting things we're going to talk about, past, present, and future. So do me a favor, just in case no one, somebody watching doesn't know who you are, why don't we start from the beginning? You know, where are you from? How did you happen? How did your amazing story begin?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here with you. And yeah, man, it's been quite the wild journey from some very humble beginnings. I was born at home in East Quogue, in a small farmhouse across the street from the 7-Eleven there. And my father delivered me. I was his fourth. I have two brothers and two sisters. I'm the second youngest, so I was the fourth one, and he decided by that point, he was like, I got this. I think there was a midwife down the road maybe, but
Incredible.
So I came into the world in a pretty beautiful way. I feel pretty blessed to, just be brought in at home, surrounded by family, on this golden afternoon in August in 1982. And my dad, he always tells a story about like just looking at me and the sun streaming in. And he said, the first thing he said to me, "Welcome to the world, Mr. Beautiful." And so that was my welcome to the world. And then they planted a beautiful cedar tree at the corner of the house. And that beautiful cedar tree was a very profound companion somehow throughout my life. And I would go and visit this tree, and for a while there we were kind of neck and neck and growing at the same
sprouting.
time, and who was going to be taller.
Right.
I could have been like a samurai and kept jumping over it as it grew, but I didn't. And anyway, it grew to be this massive, beautiful tree that really meant so much to me. And sadly, I went by there just recently, and the new owners decided to cut it down. So now that tree is, it was honestly it was a pretty traumatic experience to go and see this mm, dear old friend of mine that was no more,
Sure.
and I have a couple of bundles of the cedar that I've collected and gave to some of my close friends, and I think I have like a few of the seeds, but my placenta was planted under that tree, and so there's something about it that feels like medicine for me.
Sure.
And so anyhow, that's a little bit of the story how I came to
No,
be.
that's a beautiful thing. And I want to quickly interject here that my last son, who was born about 10 months ago, he was born in our house as well. As a matter of fact, my wife Nicole, she's a doula. We had midwife. We did the whole thing, and we encapsulated the placenta, and we turned it into. We had the salve. We had encapsulated. We had a salve made of it also, but we didn't plant it underneath a tree. That's an incredible thing to add there. And cedar is often a top in some guitars, and you have some Martins. Are any of your guitars cedar tops by any chance?
We're looking at one actually.
Incredible. So there, I kind of sensed that it was cedar, but it's hard to tell in the camera there. Incredible. There you go. That's amazing. All right, so keep going. How did you come to be from there? Amazing start.
Well, I guess just going back, rewind a little bit, it helps to get the picture that my parents were both born in England and migrated to South Africa as small children with their families. And so my parents were raised in South Africa, my father in Durban, mother in Cape Town. Right. And so they obviously developed very strong connections to Africa and the land and the culture and everything, which ended up having quite a profound effect on me. They both traveled the world, ended up meeting in New York.
That's where my parents met too. That's how it happens, right?
Yeah. And so my mom traveled the world dancing and came to New York in a dance company. My father hitchhiked across the ocean from South Africa on a boat, and he was like a chef, and then hitchhiked from Florida to California, and has this whole crazy story of traveling around with his first wife, with like just in the I think 1969 Summer of Love and like the late 60s and early 70s, and photographing all these legendary musicians and pretty just unique, or at least different than most of the people I met growing up around here in the Hamptons. We were definitely sort of on the outskirts of the neighborhood.
Sure,
so
sure, definitely.
My mom was all about Reiki and yoga and homeopathics and beige flower remedies and all these sort of alternative healing modalities before most people knew what they were.
Sure. Now they're becoming the rage, but they're still having a tough time making their way into normal society. I'd say it's great that you got a head start on such a obviously correct way to heal and to live and to grow.
Mm. There's so many ways, and it is beautiful to connect with the natural sort of healing through plants and rhythm, song, dance. Like, I don't know. I feel pretty blessed as a kid. I mean, I think I was 14 when my mom initiated me and my brother into Reiki 1, Right. So we learned about that. And I mean, I'll practice it throughout, I've practiced it throughout my life, but mostly I'm like, my daily thing is just like, I always like do Reiki on my food, essentially, like whether or not it's organic or where it comes from. It's like, if you just like open this channel and send this blessing, we use this symbol and shokore, 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 and just like send this energy through the food, it just heightens the vibration of the food, which makes it that much more nourishing for you. So anyhow, that's a little
incredible.
Yeah, part of the picture of how I was
Right.
raised.
Yeah, because everything you just mentioned can 100% relate into things like music, things like, rhythm, language. You mentioned symbols just now, and symbology, I think, is a big part of how language has been passed along over the centuries, more so than actual
Hmm.
written language of letters, which is something I want to really make sure we get
Right.
into. How language may have not
Hmm.
only be one of the most universal languages, which it clearly is, but might be one of the very first. It may have
Hmm.
even preceded spoken language.
Hmm. Yeah. You know, Baba, my godfather, is from Nigeria, Baba Olatunji, and he's a total legend, amazing, amazing man, ambassador of just love and peace and just the message and the energy of the medicine through music, rhythm, dance, song, culture that he carried was so profound, and a lot of people recognize that. You know, I mean, he marched with Martin Luther King. He played at JFK's
Oh, wow.
inauguration. He used to open for the Grateful Dead every New Year's for a
Right.
while. Mickey Hart counts him as a mentor as well. Many people. Bob Dylan mentions his name in a song.
Oh, I didn't know
Santana
that.
covered his song Jingle Roba.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
That's
so
cool.
so anyhow, Bob became a really important part of my life. And what he, I never quite mastered it, but he had this like hand flute that he used to do.
Really?
And he told us that it was one of the first instruments.
Wow.
Of course, like clapping and body percussion and
Right.
vocalizations,
Right.
um, along with this like mouth flute.
Right.
Um, yeah, these are some of the early sort of signs of music and rhythm, and also as a form of communication.
For sure. And probably not in any book. I mean, it might be now, but I don't think he got it from a book, and I'm sure his ancestors didn't.
Right. Yeah, a lot of the old traditions have been passed on orally, like oral
Right.
traditions, and that actually brings us to the topic of the djembe fola. Djembe fola in West Africa are the carriers of djembe music,
Right.
essentially. Um, and this is for many, many, God knows how many millennia that these rhythms have been passed down, from father to son and
Right.
grandfather to
Right.
grandson, daughter.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Um, so yeah, it's really beautiful just to be a part of this lineage and this process and in preserving this culture. You know,
For sure. It's a
um,
it's a
and
big
something
deal,
actually
I'd say.
I was
It's a
what's
big
that?
deal, I'd say. A really big deal.
Yeah. So this kind of very naturally um, brings up something I was excited to discuss with you, um, just because I don't know how much we've talked about it, but essentially, I've gone through a lot of spiritual experiences recently, and part of that uh, shows up as like receiving. I receive a lot of messages. I'm able to sort of just. I've gone through all these different processes, and in order to just to develop a sense of listening and to develop intuition and like listening to the nudges that you hear. And anyhow, just to bring it back, something that I feel I've been asked to do, and it feels. I mean, I just feel very kind of humbled by it, and I'm not sure how to accomplish it yet. Um, but there's something that I'm developing called Drumbe, and this is the language of rhythm, or a language of rhythm.
Right.
And the concept is essentially, growing up, I learned Baba's language for djembe, which is Gundung Godo Pata,
Right.
right? And it's pretty simple. There's like those 6 words and 3 sounds: bass, tone, slap on the
Right.
drum. And I got the inspiration to expand upon this language and to essentially develop words and ways to vocalize all of the parts of the rhythm,
Right.
not just the djembe part, and also many other sounds on the djembe, but also so the dundun, the bass parts, the shekere or hosho,
Right.
the bell. So essentially, I'm working on this new language, and I have many new words for like the dundun language and the different combinations of left and right and bass with the banjo, or
Wow.
there's all these different combinations that you have to account for,
Right.
because
Sure.
even just with 2 hands you could be doing a number of different combinations. So there's all these new words that are coming, that I'm developing this language in order to be able to vocalize the rhythms, which is a huge part of how I teach and how Baba taught.
Right.
He always would tell us, if you can say it, you can play it. So
I say that all the time
I'm kind
too.
of taking that to like the nth degree.
Right. This is the next level.
Yeah, and developing this language for djembe music, but not just djembe music. I wanted to just share the intention for Drumbe as a much broader umbrella, where I don't know, I had this vision of traveling to different parts of the world and going into West Africa and like sitting with the master drummers and essentially documenting their knowledge to create an encyclopedia of rhythm, where we can preserve the cultures. And obviously there's that oral tradition, right?
Of course. Yeah, there's the Konakal in India and stuff like that.
Yes. So imagine just taking that and being able to go into West Africa and then also trace the origins and like how these rhythms then came to the Caribbean and South America and evolved in the different samba and the maracatu and the junkanu and like all these, and essentially create like a world map of rhythm,
right,
in conjunction with like an encyclopedia of like cultures and how integral, the music, the drum, the dance, the song, the ceremony that aligns with each of these different cultures and how they've evolved over time. So this is a bit of a, it feels like still the tip of the iceberg, but this is the essence of Drumbe.
Amazing. And it's ethnomusicology at the same time. You're doing what ethnomusicologists do, but you're taking in all honesty, you're taking a far more hands-on approach. All of those people, they're musicians, but they are often there to document and to catalog. But you're creating at the same time another language. There's a few books that you brought to mind, actually. Particularly, I just happen to have it out. Me and you weren't discussing this or anything, but Music of the Whole Earth by David Reck, which is not small, is really similar to what you're discussing in a certain way. He went around and he said, the Western writing system is inadequate for most music. And it is. It's inadequate for most rhythms. It's inadequate to show the difference between, a town in West Africa versus a town in South Africa and how they would approach the same rhythm. Dialects, right? Different dialects. And he did his best to kind of get it all into one book, which is impossible. And you also reminded me of Kurt Sachs, Our Musical Heritage. This is not... I just happen to have these out. I'm surrounded by books. Like, you guys have no idea. I'm completely surrounded by books. And this other book made me think of your mom, actually. Also by Kurt Sachs, A World History of the Dance. I think these are really like similar things to what you're doing. Now, I'm not showing you them just be like, it's done already. It's not. This is a whole different realm. It's totally different than what you're saying. This is more of a historical account, and the advent of music and the advent of music writing, the advent of, how do we go from a small drum circle to, a Wagnerian, Austrian, German, whatever, huge opera. How do we get to that point? That's what the focus of his work is. You're trying to, your focus is to preserve, I think, on top of other things too, to educate as well. And it's astonishing because, I mean, I have questions here that discuss rock instrumentation versus the ancient ways. And, your message is so inspiring and so just wonderful and so necessary, in my opinion. It always was. I told you from the start, I mean, like, your music's so important, but more than ever, it's as important as it's ever been, which is one reason that I think it's amazing. What we heard at the beginning was a track from your new album titled Alchemistic, which is the coolest album title ever. And I'm not just saying this because I'm like your biggest fan, dude. I mean it. It's really cool, dude. It's really cool. And what I think is amazing is that some of the songs that are on there, you've already recorded like 15 years ago. And it's old and new. How many songs do you have? Like 150 plus songs? You have so many songs recorded.
Oh,
actually recorded.
Closer to 400, actually.
Okay, so
written.
Oh, okay. Because I know you have at least 150 recorded. The bottom of the amount, maybe. This is a catalog that people couldn't dream of, and people are always like, well, the Beatles had a lot of songs, and I'm like, yeah, imagine how many they threw away, and you don't have this, like, your music is coming from a place where it almost seems as if it's partially done already when you receive it. Like you're receiving a finished product and you're just getting it onto paper or getting it onto a recording.
Can very much be that way.
It can be that way, of course. And I didn't mean to pigeonhole the process or anything, because as a bass player, I'm so excited to create bass lines. It makes me happy to jump into a scene I've never even touched. And I met you because of Bikidi Kumalo, who was the bassist from Paul Simon's Graceland album. He kind of sent me your way, said, you got to do this gig, all right? And I'm like, okay. So you sung some bass lines for me, you showed me a few, and then we played that night. And I'll say it, I said it then, I'll say it now, I'll say it a million times. I love playing your bass lines. You write the entire song. And because your lyrics have such an important message that the music behind it has to be a certain way, not in like an overlord, like overbearing, crack the whip kind of way. When you run a band, that's how it has to be anyway. But it's more because this is the song. This is it. Don't do a cover. Don't change the key. And I love it. I think the process is amazing. And now suddenly you're going from, traveling the world with this, it's rock instrumentation. It's not rock. It's rock instrumentation. You're using the same setup that Buddy Holly and the Crickets used, to make your music. And you're adding the African drums and the elements in there. And I was always so amazed that as soon as we hit those drums, anyone sitting down is not sitting down. Immediately they stand up. And you have that kind of influence over people. You have that kind of power. You're not like a really short guy either, so you have a presence on top of everything else, And so from that to what you just described, this is the kind of, and I'll use the word for this particular purpose, this is kind of evolution that doesn't normally occur in most musicians' lives. And, did you go to music college like I did? No, but you have more musical training overall in a certain respect. It's not about going to college for this stuff, College exists, yeah, it works. But if you go to college for music, you're not going to hear a damn word about anything you just said. And I assure you, and I was a lone dog there, man. They were just saying, "Oh, what do you play, jazz or something?" Because I didn't grow up with classical like all of them, And I said, "I'm just here to I'm here to know the rules so I can break them a little better." That was the whole point. I just and it's incredible how much focus was on reading, and there's a purpose for that. But the reason I'm mentioning all of this now with the orchestral stuff, with the reading, is that you're putting yourself now in a situation where you could stand in front of 20 different drums. And through your language, you're telling what each drum has to do without having to sit there and hand do each one. And that's incredible because the Western notation is there because then an oboe player can read it. A bassoon player can read it. They're actually kind of similar. I should have said something else, like the timpani drum, the choral part, the upright bass. They have something that they can each take their part from. But you're creating one language, a spoken language, that can, it's almost a onomatopoeia, where you're imitating the drum itself in a certain way with a certain kind of word. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's more like that.
Mm-hmm.
You've never told me about any of
Mm-hmm.
this yet, by the way, and
Uh-huh.
amazing. I'm not even the least bit surprised that this is where it's going. I'm really
Man.
not surprised, actually. It's incredible, dude.
Well, I really appreciate you saying all of that. And a huge, I mean, I just feel really, man, when we make music, there's like something really special, you
I
know? And
agree.
I was so stoked to reconnect in that way this summer and just like, man, I don't know. I don't know how else to put it, but when you're there on the bass, I just feel so free. And I can like I just I know that like the foundation that needs to be there is fully supporting me to just like it really opens up a lot of freedom in my expression and my performance. So I just want to say I really appreciate you for that.
Thank you so much.
Um and yeah, man, I mean, shoot, you're a phenom. The
I
yeah,
appreciate it,
the
man.
sound, the tone, the you know the care that you approach your craft with is really inspiring, and you've really inspired me to just to grow and push myself and just like step up my game like ever since we met. So thank you,
Wow.
you know,
Thank you.
thank you for that inspiration.
Incredible. What an honor.
And
I'm very honored. Thank you very much.
yeah, man. No, it is interesting to consider, kind of the evolution of music, right? And within myself, but also like within over
Right.
time and in cultures and across continents. And to see how, for instance, like when you look at a drum set,
Right.
it's a lot of the music and the traditional African music that I play and teach. There's a certain set of drums, like a drum set,
Right.
but it's like each person is playing one of the drums,
Right.
right? The trap set, the
Right.
contraption,
Right.
where they're all together. It's like, so the kick drum would be like the dundum ba,
Right.
which is like the big bass drum, right? And then the toms, that would probably equate to like the sangba and the kinkini being the little one, the little bass
Right.
drum, and the sangba being the middle
Right.
one. And then the snare, that's pretty much your djembe, right? That's like the high crack,
Right.
like kind of lead drum, if you
Right.
will. And then hi-hats and cymbals, that would be equated to like the bell, the bell pattern happening, and a hi-hat could be like the shekere,
I see.
or in Zimbabwe, the hosha.
Right.
So it's really, I don't know, it's just interesting to see how you can translate and we've played around with that, and translating these ancient rhythms onto a drum set. And that's a lot of what we do when we go from a song into a drum break, and then we're kind of like evolving it back into this like tribal ancient primal rhythm.
Right.
And as you said before, that is what just strikes a chord in people that like they didn't even know
It's very
existed
true. Very
sometimes.
true.
Like some of these, some people just like they're just like hear the drum and it's just like this awakening, like, oh, that,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
like I know that, I recognize that, like
Yep.
that moves me. There is something really deep and beautiful about these drums.
Right.
So
And no words. Reminder:
yeah,
there's no words involved in any of that conversation that you just spoke of, and it's not the alcohol either. We're not always playing at a bar, but that's
right,
it's an
right.
unspoken, clearly defined and information passed between people language.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, man, it's been quite an interesting journey.
Wow. This almost circumvents one of the questions, but maybe we'll ask anyway because I had planned on asking it. I mean, you've had I've heard from you several different sources, and today even several different sources of inspiration for your inspirational music. And inspire meaning to just breathe in the gifts that you're given at birth, where, I mean, you don't have to go into an hour long conversation about all the different sources, but is there a primary source of inspiration for you? Because your music is, again, so inspirational, so the message is so clearly good, to have that kind of, how did I write? I had a positivity as a guiding light in what you do. You think it has something to do with the way you were born? Honestly, now that we talked about it this way, that might, I think that gave you a head start,
actually, yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, I would say right away, like first and foremost, just like my family, my mother, my father, my godfather, my surroundings growing up. Also, yeah, the way I came into the world in a very natural way. My mother nursed me until I was 4 years old. I think that has its own kind of like effect on just, well, first of all, your immunity and like development and all that, but also and on a spiritual level, like a connection. And yeah, I family is like number one, and I'd say for sure just like my connection to spirit, to the all that is, and the sort of unseen realms, especially in more recent years. I've just connected much more deeply in that way. And I've had some pretty extraordinary songwriting experiences. I'm not sure how much we talked about this. Actually, I don't think we have, but
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've had some pretty mystical experiences where essentially I'm able to just go into like a meditative state, and I just hear it like the ancestors are singing to me, and they're just singing to me like this amazing music with this beautiful message. And then next thing I know, it's coming through me and out of my mouth, and now I'm singing this message. And then I would pause and wait, and I mean, we can go into that story if you want to. It's a bit of like its own story, but just to touch on it, there have been some pretty magical experiences where I'm just like allowing music to flow through me. And in those cases, yeah, it often will just like come right through, and I'll record it, and then I'll just go back and just transcribe what came through, and that basically becomes the song.
Right. Amazing. That, because we got a big old talk about something like that in a bit. We'll save it for potentially a second half of this, or at the very end for sure.
Right.
Because that's a story it must be told. But this is an important thing to think about, is that we are truly surrounded by a lot. And if you think about the visible light spectrum that we have, right? The way that frequency works, when you double the number, you've hit an octave, right? And regarding the visible spectrum, we technically only see about 1 octave of what's around us, which is why when you see like X-ray, infrared, you see something you would never normally see with your own eyes. But that's there. You know what I mean? If you watch an image of somebody eating or drinking an X-ray, and you see it, the throat get used, and you're like, is that something that I can't see because my body restricts me from seeing it in a certain way, like the way that your ear restricts certain sounds, because then you would hear your blood pumping in your ears all day and you wouldn't hear anything. Maybe your body knows better than to give you access to all these things, you know what I mean, simultaneously. And but channeling those things requires a lot of not just attention and time and quiet, but it requires a lot of self-care, to eat and be healthy. Because that health can really be a huge, thing for you accessing the things that you already have. And that's maybe that we can bring you back for a whole nother talk on that, because I know you're well aware of chakras,
Right.
and I never really knew how far into astrology you were actually. I know you used to do full moon
Hmm.
parties all the time. That's a whole nother thing. But
Sure.
uh,
Uh-huh.
I mean, because
Uh-huh.
you are a Leo, and Leo has
I
the
am.
star Regulus, the heart of the lion, the regal Regulus. And I clearly remember you mentioning once your heart chakra opening up, and you had like a blaze of emotion.
Hmm.
Does that ring any bells? Do you remember what I'm talking about? This could have been 10 years ago or more. I really don't remember, honestly.
I do remember. That was an experience I had at my yoga teacher training in Costa Rica.
Ah,
And throughout sort of my life, and kind of practice, spiritual practice and yoga practice, um, there's always an evolution, and things are constantly in flux and in motion, and ebbing and flowing, and you steps forward and steps
right,
backwards and
right,
all this. But what you're referring to, yeah, I do remember having this really profound experience. Like sometimes often when I'm in like a group setting, in like a yoga retreat or some kind of, um, you know,
right,
container, I I've had several very profound experiences in these containers, where, for instance, in that yoga teacher training, yeah, it was a long time ago, but I do remember just having this, like, it usually happens after like several sessions, and then when I come into a shavasana, and then just like something happens,
right.
and something opens. Um, and in that case, there was a, yeah, very visceral sense, feeling of like my heart chakra opening, which, I had the sense that I was kind of like in my third chakra, my solar
Right.
plexus, and like the sun, the identity, the ego, I mean, many of us here in the planet, we're in like a 3D planet. That's a lot of kind of where we're at as a collective as well. Um, I think the microcosm reflects the macrocosm. So it's
Surely,
like
as above, so below.
whatever I'm going through, I feel and can sense like a broader collective. All, like, we're all in this together, and we're all going through these things, kind of at our own pace and in our own ways and in our own time. Um, but yeah, that was one experience, and another similar one was, years later. I was doing music for a New Year's retreat, which involved five rhythms dance, which is
Hmm.
this amazing dance
Yeah.
form where you go through these five different types of dance, of
Right.
movement, often embodying an emotion and then moving through it.
Hmm.
So turns out to be like a very powerful healing practice as well. And that, in combination with my other, so that was Amber Ryan leading this, and then Kevin Courtney, this amazing brother, was leading us through these beautiful yoga
Right.
practices, and also incorporating qigong.
Ah.
And we had these beautiful experiences. I remember like just encapsulating like all my loved ones in these like violet bubble, and just like releasing them and watching them float off into the
Wow.
into the universe, and just like letting go of attachments, and just forgiving them, and forgiving myself for anything between us, and just like having this really pretty profound healing. And then also doing the same practice with any people who butt heads
Right.
with, or have some kind of trigger or negative experience, right? And often these experiences with people who challenge us are often some of the most profound lessons in our lives. And it's like, to find a place of forgiveness, and realizing there's really nothing to forgive, and
Right.
actually, like, all is every you
Yep.
know
No, all is all.
everything is what what it needs to be. In a sense, it's perfect in that way.
Right.
And anyhow, so I went through this whole process, like forgiving and just like moving through so much emotion. And that day when I laid down into a shavasana where you're just like corpse pose on,
Right.
I I left my body and had this astral experience where I found myself, like, we were on this deck overlooking the jungle, which like went down to the ocean,
Right.
beautiful as the sun went down, and then it was like the sunset, and then I watched I just flew out of my body, and just like my consciousness just like went out
Incredible, man.
into the stars, and I found myself in this place, I suppose I could, I don't know how else to describe it, but I was essentially, I found myself in a place where I was at the intersection of time and space, and time and space were almost like these physical ley lines or something, and creating these like windows into all these different like timelines. It's a little hard to put words on
this
some
is
of
where
these types of experiences.
This is just, we were talking about how, you know, certain languages the words are kind of diminishing almost. You know, you need more of a symbolic or just personal experience in general. And these are the kinds of things that I'm sure a song can come from too, you know, where it doesn't have to be that you sit down on a guitar or a piano or whatever and then, oh, I got a song, let's do this, you know. A lot of times when bands only do that and then never evolve, the fifth album sounds like the fourth album, you know, and that's just kind of the way it is. It's not anything good or bad. Do your thing, you know, but things don't move along unless you do as a person. And it must be, you know, and you don't always perform the same songs that you used to. That's cool. You're not like doing the stuff you maybe wrote when you were much younger that you don't feel the same way about anymore. And that's, unless you do, of course. Something like a song, Easy to Close Your Eyes. That song will never age, in my opinion. And you must feel similarly, at least, about it the way you did when you wrote it, you know? And fasting is something I wanted to ask you about. I know you fast often, and I know that I remember specifically when I met you, you had done something like a 10-day fast, and you wrote a song each day or something, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
Because we're going on old memories now. So did you go into it with the intention of, I'm going to fast and I'm going to write a song every day and see what happens? Or did it just happen because it had to?
You know what? Yeah, no, actually I did set that intention.
Wow. Incredible.
I decided to give this fast a try. It's kind of they call it the master cleanse, and it's like spicy maple lemonade, and you know, it's become somewhat popular over the years. We're talking maybe 15 years ago now, or something like this, when I first did it. And the first time I did 10 days, and I decided, I was like, I'm gonna write a song each day and record it and just post it up on YouTube. And that's what I did. And I made 10 songs, and actually Easy to Close Your Eyes was one.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's an inspired tune, man. That wasn't just a quick little, that's something. That's something, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and honestly, that fast, I would do it about once every change of season at first. So then I would do it at the change of season. So I did it like 4 times, I think, the first year. And then I think by the second year, I started just doing it like twice a year, once like in the spring, once in the fall, something like that. And then I I kept it going. I don't know how many, I lost track. I've probably done it a dozen times or so.
The master cleanse, you mean, specifically?
And specifically the master cleanse. Yeah. Yeah. And I found actually, you know, energetically and sort of just spiritually, it opened up so much space where, I mean, I am a fiery individual, and it takes a lot of fuel to like keep my energy up, you know. And so like a lot of my life, it does evolve around food and eating and what's, you know.
I see.
I'm sitting here drinking my matcha as we speak,
right.
So to kind of like, take that out of the equation, it certainly opens up a whole lot of time and space where you can, you know, just meditate, reflect. Like I remember my yoga practice becoming very focused and strong, and just being like, eventually after the first few days can be a little like, whoo, and day three
Sure.
usually is kind of a hump. And once you get over that, then you kind of get this like burst of energy, and day like 4 to 10 can be like super high energy, even like more than usual.
Incredible.
And yeah, I did find a lot of inspiration through that, and just like resetting. It's a beautiful reset of your system, gives your digestive track a whole like time to kind of
Right.
recalibrate and take a rest. So yeah, I have personally a really positive experience with that.
That's incredible, man. And then speaking of the word inspire as to breathe in, there are some that say there have been people that are breatharians and don't need to eat. They take breath as everything they need. I'm sure it takes a lot of
Sure.
training, but who knows, man? If you eat way
Yeah.
less than the average person, you probably will, your body will probably survive longer. It seems to be the equation that makes sense. I don't
Hmm.
know. But, if you don't put
Right.
that much work
Right.
on your body every day, that could really lead to a much longer life and many other things. And that's a
Hmm.
whole, we could,
And
you
there's
know,
a lot.
no,
Mm,
go ahead, go ahead. I'm saying we could
there's a
talk about
lot
this for
that's
20
in
hours,
the air from. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, even just on that note, like in the air there's a lot of like pollen and different like things that are floating that actually can nourish
Right.
your body,
If you breathe the right way, right?
especially
If you breathe the right way.
when you're tuned to
Right.
it. Right, right.
Right, right. Yeah. Wow. Incredible, man. So,
Yeah, man.
I, it's funny how little we've really discussed like the world traveling musician that you are, as far as you bringing your music to other people. And the music speaks for itself. First of all, I mean that's first of all, no matter what. But there's certain things I have questions about as far as you having been to so many different continents, particularly Australia. You were pretty much like stranded in Hawaii for a while, right? How long were you in Hawaii for? You were there for a few years, right?
Well, I've I've actually made Kauai my home now, as far as my winter home.
Wow.
I'm born and raised out
Yeah.
here, East
Yeah.
End of Long Island, and I do come here in the summers to play music and see my family and everything. But in the winters, the past several years, I've been calling Kauai home, and when that actually, like the day I chose to move to Kauai, I actually moved my flight one
Right.
day just to get in before the lockdown. So
Oh,
it was 2020.
so the
I want to
March
say it was
15th or something.
March
Oh, okay.
31st, 2020. I think the lockdown started on April 1st there on Kauai.
Oh, okay. I
And
see. In Hawaii.
yeah, so I flew in there, and I mean Kauai is already a pretty quiet
Yeah.
island, but now there was like no tourism, and I
Wow.
lived in this little jungalow down by the beach, and actually that's where I mixed a lot of the
Oh, the new
record
album.
Alchemistic.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had that there with me, and I was basically just like mixing that. I would go surfing, do my yoga, you know
Right.
have a smoothie, and I was just in this like beautiful flow, man. and
Incredible.
and luckily in Hawaii during the pandemic, surfing is considered essential, so they
Wow.
never stop people from
I
going
did not hear
surfing.
about that.
um,
That's
yeah,
amazing, dude.
so we were allowed, we were able. They did have a curfew. I
Right.
think it was like
All
10
right. Fair.
p.m.
Fair
But
enough.
other
Fair
than
enough.
that, yeah, other than that, it was like, it was, I don't know. I feel like it was a pretty magical moment on that island, where it's often inundated with
Yeah. Yeah.
tourism and traffic and stuff like this, and it was just so, just calm and peaceful, and the locals were all like so happy, and we were just, everything just kind of slowed down, and actually that's when I
Did you
wrote
write
that
"Slow
song.
Down" then?
I sure did. Yeah,
Incredibly.
so this song came through, and it's called Slow
Right. Right.
Down, and it was essentially my initial response to this whole
Mm,
situation, this global,
right.
pandemic. And um
Incredible, dude. What a
yeah,
cool
just
story.
just kind of became this, I don't know, that song has become somewhat of an anthem for myself, and also a lot of my friends and fans locally. Like, people have just like gravitated to this song, and I think it's because of where it came from,
Sure.
and the fact that it's like we all were going through this experience together, And despite all of the challenges and the craziness of it and the bullshit and the I mean, there's a lot.
Sure,
That's
a
a
whole
whole
different
other
talk. Yeah,
podcast.
yeah. Right.
But I think, you know, this song somehow was able to express um, at least one perspective on like, hey, like here's where we're at. This is what we're going
Right.
through. Um, you know, I feel like the lyrics really speak to me. Sometimes I don't know where they come from. You know, a lot of
Right.
times
Right.
like I'll sing something and I'm like, okay, like, and then I look back later and I'm like, what? Like, where did that come from? You
Yeah.
know?
Oh, definitely, man. Wow.
But yeah, that song, I don't know, just lyrically, like, has something really sweet about it.
Sure. Sure. Put
And
put your
and
family
then
first. Isn't that part of the song? Yeah. That's like not in
yeah,
the
put your
over
family
anything else, but
first.
the way that it's there, it's placed so
Slow
well, and
down,
it's nice. Yeah. You're right.
put your feet on the earth, and take the time you deserve, and remember what you're worth. And yeah, slow down and
That's
just tune
something.
into your heart and let her gently guide you to,
Right.
find your place and like, what is it here we're here to do? Um,
Right.
I feel like the whole lockdown and like when everything kind of like stopped, a lot of people had been sort of on the, just on
The
the,
treadmill.
the treadmill,
Yeah.
the
The
hamster
hamster
wheel
wheel.
of
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
just kind of like going through the motions and not really necessarily like knowing why, and just kind of like caught in this loop of doing some job they don't even really believe
Right.
in, but they just think they have to so that they can, pay for the car to get them to the job that they don't believe in, so they can find.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
No,
like
I
this
agree.
loop, kind of this endless loop, and a lot. What happened? I don't know. At least one of the beautiful side effects of this whole thing that I witnessed was a lot of people just stepping off of that treadmill, stepping outside of that cage, and having a moment to stop and say, "Wait a minute, what am I really here to do?
Right.
Like, why did I really come to planet Earth at this
Right.
time? This is a really special time to be alive.
It
It
really
really
is.
is." And something that I've tuned in with recently is just that like only brave souls decide to incarnate here. Like this is
Yeah.
it's a very challenging school.
It is.
It's like we're oh my god, it's so funny. I just saw this interview with Jim
Yeah.
Carrey, and he's amazing. He's like, and I totally resonate with this. He was like, I used to be, what did he say? I used to be a guy having an experience of the world and the universe. And he's like, and now I feel like I am the universe having an experience of being a guy, like,
Yeah.
like it turns around where,
Right.
you realize that we're spiritual beings having a human experience,
Yes. Yes. And that's once again another, maybe not another topic for another day, but I think that's going to lead into kind of where we're going to end with, as far as a most recent experience you had, which is just too amazing for words. And I guess let's make it a two-part. We'll take like a little quick break. We'll come back. We'll record one last segment where you go into detail about what you have recently experienced, this incredible drum that just found its way to you, and so many other things that are too amazing for words. Everything we've discussed already has been above and beyond, man. What an incredible thing. And I was born in 82 also, as you already know. So we're both the ripe age of 40, and that's, some would say you're already halfway there. Like, I don't even think we're a quarter of the way there. We've got so much left, and you're clearly only starting this new path. It's amazing. It really is. You know what? I had two more questions left, and maybe I'll ask them right now because they'll be quick. They'll make them quick because I'm really curious, and I think the audience would like to know too. Now, whether they just met you now or not. Do you have any? This isn't the question I was thinking that they want to know. Do you have any tattoos? I don't remember.
I do
You do not, right?
Yeah,
And neither do
no.
I, by the way. Just by chance, I just never did it. My skin's all flexible, as you know, and which just keeps me bendy. And I figured I would maybe be bad for my skin. I don't know. But my wife has the most incredible tattoos, and she has her whole arm is done with all the birth flowers of the family. It's just amazing.
Mhm.
The reason I'm asking about
Mhm.
tattoos, not because I think the crowd's curious if you have tattoos, but you've been to Hawaii, you've been to South America, you've been to Australia. There's some pretty serious tattoo culture in Hawaii and Australia, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't
Mhm.
just mean
Yeah.
the guys who throw burning knives and cut their arms a lot and then cover them with tattoos, but what is the consensus about the way Americans use tattoos? The ones that just get the tribal tattoo and don't even research it first, or some Japanese character that even if it's a little line is off, it means a whole different thing. Is there talk? Is that ever mentioned? Did you ever get a sense of? I'm so curious. You having been to these places that really, tattoos are a big deal.
Mhm. Well, I think as CeeLo put it, what I believe within, I engrave it in my skin. I think it's a beautiful thing to, um, you know, see your body is your temple, and you are your own masterpiece in the
Right.
making, and how you so choose to decorate yourself, stylistically, or
Right.
piercings, tattoos, what you're gonna wear, and anything like this. And specifically with tattoos, I mean, it is an interesting question that you brought up,
Yeah.
because I don't have any yet, but I already have about seven that I've been
Right.
considering,
Right.
and literally, actually, we're looking at this right here, this
Oh,
symbol.
get it. I have it cut
Um,
off a bit. But you want to get it a little closer where the guitar would be? Let's say.
yeah.
Right. This is now. Would you say that this is the Dan Bailey tribe symbol? What would you say about this amazing symbol, man? Which I just love.
So, I guess part of why this is coming up as far as the tattoos, this will probably be the first tattoo that I get. And so the way this came into my life, I was on my trip around the world. I was 19 years
Right.
old. We didn't talk much about that, but
That's
that's
all
a
right.
bit of a long old story.
Right.
But I was traveling across Africa in this big 4-wheel drive truck, and I hardly remember doing it, but I had I jotted this symbol down on the back of a scrap of paper
Right.
or something, and then I rediscovered it, like, I don't know, a year or two later or something, like way later, and I had forgotten I had done it, and then I saw it, and I'm like, whoa, I don't know, I just, like, something struck me about
Yeah.
it, and I just felt drawn to draw it more, and so I've been drawing this symbol essentially ever since, and it represents a lot of things. I call it
So
Soluna,
Luna.
as,
Right.
yeah, like the sun and
Right.
the moon. Um, as you can see, it has this feminine, like a wave. So this is like representing the
Right.
water, or the feminine aspect. It also could be seen as a womb,
Right.
and then this lower part is like the masculine, the sun. This is like the sunshine,
I
and
see.
these are like the rays of the
Right.
sun. Or it could be seen as like sperm,
Sure. Sure.
like
Because
entering an egg, and here's the womb, right? So this is like, it has, like I said, it has a lot of depth of meaning for myself. I feel like people can find their own meaning in it.
sure.
But for me, it has this element of balancing the masculine and the feminine, and the fire and the water.
Wow.
And I've also come more recently to understand that it represents all of the elements,
Amazing.
not just fire and water, but it focuses on
Sure.
that.
Sure. No, that it is. It's
So,
deep, man. It's
um,
very cool.
it's very deep, and I woke up out of a dream one day, and had this vision of it, uh in the Aboriginal
Right.
style, like the dot
Oh
paintings,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and that's what led to uh this version,
Very cool.
where it's done with all the dots.
Right. No, that's great, man. I love it. I love it, dude. I really do. All right. So, what was my final question? I guess we'll leave it with a real light one here. What is? I've never been there, but I have a feeling. Again, you've been to pretty much every continent. What is the night sky like in Hawaii, I should say? Is it completely different?
Thank you for bringing us there.
I can't even
You
imagine.
immediately just teleported me to this moment on the Nepali coast of Kauai. It's like the most beautiful part of the planet I've ever
Wow.
experienced for many reasons in many ways, both just physically but also like
Mm,
spiritually. There's just, you can feel such a ethereal and just um very very profound spiritual presence there.
right.
There's a lot of spirit there, a lot of mana, they
Yeah.
call it. The energy of the land there is very very healing. And I started going on sort of these ritual hikes along the Nepali coast, and I would go to the river at Hanakapiai and hold ceremony there. And I just was teleported back to like on the hike back. Sun goes down, you're like up on this side of this mountain that just descends into the turquoise waters, and the sun melts into the ocean, and then the sky that appears and the stars, it's like, it's really indescribable.
I know the pictures
But
don't do it justice, that's for sure.
yeah, man, there's this sense of hmm, there's this sense of, it's so
Mm,
humbling, you
yeah,
know.
I understand.
It's so just like, you feel profoundly small.
Yeah.
You know, when you look out and you see all these stars and planets, and you can only imagine what's off in between that you cannot
Yeah.
see. And it's really, um I would say it's one of the most profound experiences I've had with, with the natural world, and the night sky, just like the stars, just like you just can see the entire Milky
Right.
Way, and like all the constellations, and like, oh my god, yeah, it's really
And this is coming from you now,
really
somebody who
something
has
special.
had a broader view of the natural world than most people just by the nature of what you do and by the nature of your
Mm.
upbringing as well. So that I'd say that's a very valid thing to hear. And it's a damn good reason to get over there as soon as possible. Like, I really want to see it myself. I really do. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Everybody, we're just going to take a 5-minute break here. I'm going to put on some of Dan's music, and we'll come back, and he's got, if you thought everything you already heard was amazing, I think he has an even more profound and more up-to-date story to tell you that is, again, just beyond words, but we're going to put it into as many English words as we possibly can, and we'll see you guys on the other side of this.
And probably some other languages
Right?
too. Yeah.
That's a question I've got. All right, cool. All right, thanks, Dan. We'll talk to you again in just a minute, all right? Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.